You can sort of see it in this video, but these nuts and bolts are getting pretty rusty. I've only used it for about a year before I used the shifter kit, but here's a hint. You might want to go to your hardware store and buy grade 8 bolts before you install this. As long as they're the same length and width, they should install, and they'll last a lot longer. These bolts aren't quite the greatest quality that came with the kit, so you might consider buying better quality bolts. Alright, I've had a few requests for videos on how to install a sprocket to the wheel for any of those moped kits, put an engine on your bike. So I'm uploading this video to YouTube so some people can see how it's done. Alright, we have here our sprocket with all the attachment supplies necessary and the standard coaster back wheel. First of all, your wheel needs to have 36 spokes because it's a multiple of 9, because you have 9 bolts and 9 holes. You need to match up with each spoke. To start, what I do is I take one rubber thing. If it's not slit, it needs to come apart. You're going to take that, stick it inside the spokes, and with the cut part you can wrap it around the axle or the hub. So as you can see, it's just in there between the spokes. If you have a coaster brake, you probably will have to take it off. You might even have to bend it up a little bit so that the sprocket will clear under it here. So just you're going to take a wrench, hold your coaster brake, and unscrew this nut. Keep your coaster in the same spot and just move the nut. And once you have that off, you can finish putting on your sprocket. You're going to take one of your bolts. You have 9 bolts, 9 nuts, 9 washers, and 9 lock washers. Take your 9 bolts and stick them through all of these before you have it on the wheel. And once you have your 9 bolts in, it should look like this. You have your sprocket, and you have your rubber here, and the bolts all go through. Take this whole contraption, stick it over the axle, and line the bolts up so they go through those 9 triangles in the spokes. And just stick it on, push it down. Next thing you need to do, this is a little tricky. You want to take this rubber piece and push that, all the bolts, through the 9 holes in that rubber piece. Just go around and push each bolt through until they're all threaded through this rubber piece. Once you finish threading these 9 bolts through the rubber, your order should be, you have your sprocket, then you have a rubber piece outside the spokes, then you have a rubber piece inside the spokes with the bolts threaded through every single one. The next step is to take your 2 metal pieces. Some kits will give you 3, but I don't know if you noticed or not, but they make a circle with 9 holes in. This part's really hard to figure out, but what you do is you stick this metal piece over top of your bolts so your bolts are threaded through it. Do that with both your pieces, and now you have a metal plate on top of the rubber. This acts as sort of a washer to protect the rubber. The next step you're going to want to do is take a washer, stick it through on top of a bolt, on top of the metal piece you stuck in. Put the washer on. I'll see if I can zoom in here. So you have a washer. Take a lock washer, that's the kind of bent washer, and stick that on top of your washer that you already have on there. So you now have a washer and a lock washer on your bolt. Take one of these nuts and screw it onto your bolt. Just thread it on until it stops turning, just so it won't fall off. And you now have a sprocket, a piece of rubber, another piece of rubber inside the spokes, a metal plate, and then on the bolt you have a washer, a lock washer, and a nut. Do the same thing for every nut. Put a washer, lock washer, and nut on each bolt for all 9 bolts going around. Before you tighten your sprocket down, make sure it is centered on the axle here. Some hubs will fit the inside of this perfectly, so you don't have to worry, but this one you can see there's a little bit of a hole there that is on this side. So you want to take your sprocket and shift it until it's perfectly centered. Otherwise your chain is going to bounce around and it could break the chain, or your chain could hop off. So make it as centered as you can, and then you can go ahead and tighten your bolts. Once you have them all hand tightened, what you need to do is take a size 12 millimeter wrench, stick it on a nut, and then take either a wrench or a ratchet that's size 14, stick it on the bolt, hold your wrench, and turn the bolt. Make sure you're tightening it. If you hold the wrench, you can just ratchet the bolt shut. And using your size 12 and size 14, just tighten these bolts as tight as you can. Now, there's a certain pattern that you need to follow when you tighten these. Just start with any one you want. Say tighten this one. You're going to start with this one, and then you're going to go across. So 4 over to this one, and then you go 4 over to this one, 4 over to this one, 4 over to this one, and just keep on going 4 over, and you're going to tighten a bolt that's pretty much across, and that way your sprocket is, when you tighten it, it'll go down flat onto the wheel. It won't be sideways, tilted or anything. And once you have them all tightened, take your wheel, spin it really fast, and look at your sprocket. Make sure it's not wobbly or anything. If it is wobbly, you can try to tighten one bolt where it's sticking up a little bit more, see if you can get it to go down. But if you have the larger motorcycle size 415 chain, you should be fine if it has a little bit of wobble. When you're done tightening your bolts down and your sprocket is centered on this axis, centered around the axle, and it's also in line with the wheel, it's parallel with the wheel, you can stick your wheel back on, wrap your chain around, and you're done with installing your sprocket. Good luck.